One. Alrighty, we are back with another video. Earlier this week, a gentleman by the name of, if you can call him that, Pete Hegseth decided to share classified, unclassified details via Signal regarding bombing plans for Yemen. Um, Chase, what are your thoughts on this? Should he be removed as Secretary of Department of Defense? And where do we go from here? And do you think there's any accountability if he doesn't get removed?
I don't think anybody's going to get removed. I think if anybody was going to get removed, it'd be Mike Waltz, who basically was kind of the one who put the. They don't care that it's an in signal, right? Like
Hmm.
they don't care that it's not safe or insecure. They care that somebody found out,
Yeah.
like that they had the reporter on there. Which I think it's funny to blame him and try to go on as many different things as you can to deflect, and to the point that even Republican voters and Republican leaning voters and um news people were kind of like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't make a lot of sense. But I do think that because um the usage of Signal is kind of a part of that 2025 where they're not writing things down physically to kind of escape, I think, some of the rules and regulations. Now, it doesn't seem like that's going to work with this because they're going to investigate this as they should. Um,
Well,
do I think
Elon Musk is going to investigate.
not the Trump administration, but Congress will.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because I think both sides of the aisle are going to be very concerned about this because it's blatantly stupid. Um, Now, is it like there is a degree of partisan uproar about it? I'm not gonna lie. Like we are kind of pushing it, but I think one, it's the response that you get from it that is interesting too. I mean, borderline, they're basically saying there's not a signal chat, but there also is a signal chat. It's like you're able to basically lie in front of Congress because I mean, wasn't that what they were doing?
Yeah.
Saying that it wasn't really classified and it's not that big of a deal and all these different things. But I do think Waltz would be on the chopping block just because of his ideology. He's a little bit more mainstream, a little bit more in the vein of Marco Rubio in some ways. Although, what is that to be said these days? But I do think that his ideology kind of clashes with Hegseth and Vance. Um, And honestly, that was probably the most interesting thing, besides the whole controversy of it, was kind of the discrepancy between JD and Trump. Although, they kind of are blowing it off, but in some ways, I found myself agreeing with JD.
Yeah.
What is this doing? And then, I think it's interesting because Biden did the same thing, and everybody was like, this is World War III, this is stupid, this is awful. And Trump's going out and bombing Yemen, the Houthis, in the same manner. And it's viewed as like, a necessary and strategic, but also beyond just the kind of discrepancies between JD and Trump on kind of the bombing. I also thought it was interesting just hearing JD say, "I hate bailing out Europe again." Like you can kind of just see the ideologies playing out, and kind of the divisions within the administration. But I actually heard a pretty good analogy for it. Crystal Ball from Breaking Points was talking about it and saying that it was basically just like kids playing war games, and I feel like that was the most apt description that I've heard about it. No, no care that they killed civilians, no care that, is this going to even be effective? Is this going to even deliver the policy? And, to be honest, you said you were going to, bring, um, stop the wars, which this doesn't seem to be stopping the wars.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Still waiting for the end of the Ukraine-Russia war. Donald Trump said that it would be ended by day one. We are now about to hit April. Um, yeah, I think that this whole situation is like very odd because um, I've never, I mean, we've never seen, I feel like we say this every week, right? Like we've never seen this or we've never seen that. We've never seen a reporter being added to a, let's say, top secret signal chat regarding bombing plans against the foreign adversary, right? Like I've I've never seen sitting president ever argue in the middle of the White House with an ally that we're supposed to be supporting. It's just like I said, it's one week after another. Like we're finding something new, we're finding something different that's just out of this world, and we've become so used to it. We've become conditioned to just accept that like this is our new normal, and it hasn't even been Donald Trump's first 100 days in office. In regards to Pete Hegseth and Waltz, I I just don't understand how uh, there won't be any consequences when something like that gets out. Regardless of like ideology, there was a major screw up when it came to adding a journalist, right? Like what happens if he posts that prior to um, the bombing and taking action? Then suddenly, those people in Yemen, the Houthis, are actually getting information beforehand and could actually do something about like the bombing or could put American lives at risk. So I just don't, I really don't understand um, how anybody can accept this as a new normal. I feel like every time I hear something, I get more and more frustrated, but I'm happy because I'm like I'm getting more engaged. I'm more interested in getting involved because like I just we can't go back to this. This is insanity. There's nothing normal about this. And I don't know. I think Congress needs to take action. I don't think that they will. Um, I think that I don't know. I think that this year, if they're, if, okay, for one, if Marjorie Taylor Greene does end up getting the nomination for the Republican Party in the primaries and takes on John Ossoff, and we go even further into insanity, where do you think that leaves us? Like, are we really going to accept someone as unhinged and crazed as Marjorie Taylor Greene?
I mean, they do. So we're already kind of there. I mean, maybe it's not the Senate and maybe it's not, the biggest role compared to other things, but I mean, I think being very loyal, especially in the Republican Party, gets you very far these days. And not loyal to, values or commitments to, the Republican Party ideology, whatever that is these days. Um, it's more of loyalty to Trump and I guess this America First ideas that Trump has, which, I'm not sure a lot of these are really that America First, but you know, um, excuse me, but yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. One, this is going to be the new normal, but already, allies are sitting here saying basically the relationship is like, I don't even think if we elect a Democrat again in 4 years or whatever, that the relationship with Canada is going to change much. I mean, you can't threaten to annex people again and again and again and then just switch up and change. Like they're going to remember that.
Yep.
And there is, we haven't always been as close as we've, been now, like because we've had good relations. But I mean, years and years ago, like Canada was still concerned about America coming in and taking over parts of Canada. And in some ways, I mean, Canada wasn't really Canada. It was more of, the British and like
Yeah.
um, that type organization. So I think with that, you can't just mend those relationships like you think you can. You can't just go 4 years insulting somebody and then they're just going to be your BFF again. Like
Yeah,
Europe is going to just eventually be like, you know what? Actually, maybe this alliance isn't working for us. Who do they choose? Do they choose China? Maybe.
yeah,
I think China is trying to come in and kind of be a little bit more of a stable partner. Not to say that I mean, they also have their own issues. But compared to it, it's like kind of balancing that. And then, kind of Russia menacing Europe, now. So, I'm also not just concerned about the domestic front, but I'm concerned about where this leads in the world.
yeah.
It has all the makings of, some sort of world war or some sort of great conflict coming up. It's not guaranteed, but it does kind of feel like that. Um, I mean, we'll see what happens with that. But it is, very concerning to be honest.
I mean, we are becoming more isolationist, right? Like we are completely cutting off ties with the European Union, Canada, Greenland. Like we're finding ways in order to push them away from us. Um, I thought it was, I think it's very interesting, and I'm excited for. I think it's Tuesday, Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken, where Donald Trump is going to be announcing reciprocal tariffs and kind of the impacts
Oh, you're talking
that.
about Liberation Day?
Yeah, yeah, kind
Liberation
of.
Day.
I'm interested to see how that turns out for the United States because I mean the stock market has already reacted. I mean we lost over $1 trillion yesterday. I was looking at my stocks and I had tears in my eyes because I was just like I don't understand how one person could have completely lost all of this money. So um it's been very difficult to kind of comprehend how people are still trying to spin it as if this is a good thing. And Donald Trump keeps talking about temporary pain, but then why not just rip off the band-aid, right? Like he keeps giving, 1 month or 30-day extensions, right? Like when he initially announced the tariffs, it was going to be in March, and now it's in April. And I mean, it's just one thing after another. He pushes it back for one reason or another, and it doesn't seem like he's ever actually getting what he wants. Um, but he has to pitch it as if he just won something, right? Like when Mexico agreed to send 15,000 border or 10,000 troops to the Mexico border. We've been doing co-ops with the Mexican government for years. We had 15,000 like last year or 2 years ago, and people were saying, well, they're supposed to be permanent troops at the border rather than the temporary ones. It's just like, how do you know that, right? Like there has been no confirmation if that's going to be temporary or permanent soldiers on the ground, and it doesn't sound like it's been any more permanent. I mean, I haven't heard anything about it since that announcement. So, um, I don't know. I think it's very odd to see us become isolationists and push away like Canada, especially because Canada's never done anything to us, and I think that I'm failing to grasp why he thinks these tariffs are going to put America in a better spot. Um, because I mean, even Jordan Peterson, I was watching an interview with Jordan Peterson the other day. Even Jordan Peterson's starting to kind of veer away from the Trump train, and that's because he's been directly affected now, right? Like, people wait until they've been impacted before they start saying like they see what Trump says and they're just like, oh, that's going to impact thee, but not me. But as soon as it is me, then suddenly it's just like, oh, wait a second, he is an issue. Like, I mean, where's the humanity in that, where you're okay with it happening to somebody else, but not, not you?
Happens a lot, unfortunately. I think, you know, people also, I think they assume that they're protected. This American exceptionalism paints you into this pretty picture, but it's not. reality.
Mm,
Reality is that America is just as complicated and messed up as other places are. Not more, not, it's not to say that the issues are just so overwhelming, but there are a lot of challenges and things like that. And I think people don't think, like you were saying, they don't think it's going to happen to them. It's going to happen to these other groups. I mean, you see people who are, married to undocumented immigrants or, um, you know, even just green card holders or people just take for granted, the freedoms that we've had in some ways. And like, they can make it about whatever argument they want to say about it being about security issues or security concerns for the country or things like that. Um, but it's kind of falling on deaf ears to me because um, do immigrants have rights?
yeah,
Like, how long into your immigration like status are you protected? And like, sure, I think, there's reasons why green card holders might not get the full extent of the law. If they commit a crime, then, they're likely to be deported at that point. But
yeah,
to sit there and say that an opinion I don't like is a crime, or to sit there and say that it's anti-Semitism, when the same party who goes around screaming George Soros every single time is going to sit here and act like they're the defenders of anti-Semitism, like
yeah,
they're going to fight it and protect the Jews. Um, it also is very strange, and I think sometimes people can get a little harsh. Not to say like I understand, but like sometimes people are a little weird about like our relationship, basically almost saying that Israel runs the country or something. That's conspiratorial.
right,
But it is kind of weird that you can, if you say these opinions about Israel, you say these certain things about this, they're gonna deport you because you're a terrorist, I guess, in their eyes.
yeah,
Which, you know, at that point, can you just keep expanding it? And my question is, if you expand those powers for this administration, what's to say that the next administration that maybe it's a Democratic administration. Maybe they sit there and they say immigrants who have said, I don't know, maybe they're more conservative immigrants. They shouldn't be allowed here.
yeah,
Where does that go? Like, I mean, you're all fine with it when it's happening to these other people, but then what if it happens to people who believe what you believe? And why? And people are like, "Oh, well, that's not going to happen. That's going to happen." Why? I mean, you're literally allowing it to be happen, and you're allowing that precedent to be set. I mean, I think that's honestly my biggest concern. It's not always just Trump. It's like when you open that can of worms, how long is it going to stay open? Like, how long is it going to just be there and be a possibility for any other person who assumes the office to use and abuse?
yeah,
Um, and I think that's you can't. It's the future, and you can't tell that. But I think there is a lot of historical references that we can kind of look at um, with just throughout this country's history of like kind of one. I mean, especially over the past couple decades, we've seen the presidency expand.
yeah,
Now, sometimes I agree with that, but I also do think that um, we haven't really seen other places power gains, right? Like Congress isn't stronger. If anything, Congress is significantly weaker these days.
yeah,
Especially now. I mean, what are they passing? What are they doing? Nothing.
yeah.
Like, I barely even see them in session.
It's all executive orders.
Yeah, but also like at the end of the end of the day, if you can just which is interesting because when Obama was doing executive orders or Biden or anybody, it's like that's not how it works. You're being a dictator, and then like Donald Trump only does executive orders and does it over. We need to remove anti-American ideology from the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
So what's the anti-American? You're gonna whitewash history? I mean, at what point are we sitting here like the getting rid of woke ideology is an attack on the First Amendment.
Yeah.
It is. You can sit there and say, it's not, or whatever the different arguments are for people that they have, but it is.
Yeah.
you can't sit here and scream about free speech, free speech, free speech while you're kidnapping people off the street and saying that this ideology is dead in America and, attacking any company who does DEI or, is woke. What at what point is that just, you're just stifling the freedoms and the ideas that you don't like? Um, and even beyond that, you kind of see the whole capitulation of certain legal firms and stuff like that, making deals with the administration, kind of just capitulating to them. Um, and I think that's extremely concerning as well, because when you start having, you're basically having people willingly commit to bowing down and saying, yes, you have those rights. Yes, you have that. Like, you're not fighting back at all.
Right.
And I think, you know, you can see it with the companies pulling back, getting rid of DEI initiatives, um, undoing partnerships with pride organizations, things like that. Um, and we all frame it like, oh, it's just a change or we're going to reframe it. But it is a little concerning to me that, you know, they're just willingly giving up their rights and willingly giving over to somebody who, Trump doesn't have the rights he says he does.
Yeah.
Now, there's legal, questions about what he can and can't do and stuff like that. But to even sit there and say that he's a king or he's a dictator or anything like that, he's not. We can say those things and he can act like one, but at the end of the day, he doesn't have that power over us.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing that I think we can begin to highlight. And in some ways, I think it's a reawakening of that kind of American commitment to rights. The founding fathers didn't say that I'm giving you these rights or that the president gives you these rights. It's you're given these rights by your God or the universe, whatever you want to describe it as, but you're endowed with those rights from birth.
Yeah.
And I think there's an awakening of that in some ways across the country. I mean, it seems like there's like the barnstorming with Democrats and stuff like that, and they're going across and you know having conversations in red districts, and people are showing up. They're going out there and trying to talk to everybody now a little bit more. And I mean that's what you should have been doing the whole time. But um, I think despite everything, it despite us being as disconnected and kind of all over the place with ideology, I feel like we're honestly kind of having more of a conversation than we have had in years. It's not a great one, but I mean, it's like the right is trying to outwoke the left in just their own way. Like sitting there saying they're the true party of feminism now or something because of the of trans issues,
Yeah.
or you know they're the defenders of free speech and all these different things. Um, but yeah, I mean, we'll see how that goes. But there just continues to be a lot with those developments. And every week it's something new. Um, so
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. And I know you have to go, so we'll wrap this up. I want to next week we'll have to start talking about Elon Musk talking about Waltz bringing out his phone and talking about the Tesla stock sinking and calling him like sick and evil and like who wants to see a American company tank while, the go woke, go broke crowd, including Elon Musk with plenty of screenshots on that. So definitely want to get into that conversation next time. But I will see you next week. Thank you so much as always, and have a good rest of the day.
yeah, thanks. You too.